Vaetchanan. Vaetchanan is the name of this week's Torah portion, the second Torah portion in the book of Deuteronomy. You know, the book of Deuteronomy is the longest book because God just told Moses a few Torah portions ago that it is now time for him to let go and to die. And after he blesses the nation of Israel at the edge of the promised land, which he's never going to be able to cross the Jordan to get into, Moses decides to prolong his life for as long as he can by giving the longest speech ever recorded in the world, which is the book of Deuteronomy itself, where Moses tells the story of the last 3 books to that generation of Israelites who supposedly were not present in Egypt and might have not known what had happened until the moment they find themselves in right now. Moses plays the clock. And so the whole book of Deuteronomy is a retelling of what we've already gone through. And Vaetchanan, I think I said that last year, Vaetchanan, this week's Torah portion, is the one Torah portion all the other Torah portions are jealous of. Because that Torah portion has everything. It's got the Shema, the Ve'ahavta, that we just did. It's got some of the most famous quotes in the Torah from deeply connected, enlightened beings who said things like, Ein od milvado. There is nothing but that which is everything in every moment. And then, of course, there are the 10 Commandments. Can you imagine? All of that in just one Torah portion. When we went through the book of Leviticus and it was so dry, with all the sacrifices and how many bulls and how many goats and how many pigeons, couldn't we have a little sprinkling of Vaetchanan in the middle of Leviticus to liven things up? No. Everything was compressed in this one Torah portion. I want to talk a little bit about the 10 Commandments. Because they're not actually the 10 Commandments. You know that. That's a botched translation of what this is really about. Coming from a consciousness, a perspective of the translator that clearly had an agenda as to what he probably wanted us to understand God to be, and painted God as this commanding voice. The voice that gives us laws, the voice that gives us rules, the God that gives us shoulds and musts, the not so benevolent dictator. But that's an idea of the divine that many of us are moving beyond, are seeking to transcend, are seeking to expand upon. And the God of the mystics read these translation of Asarat Adibrot not as the 10 Commandments, but almost literally, according to the Hebrew, as the 10 pronouncements, the 10 utterances, the 10 principles. Because we do not believe that there ever was, historically, a moment of revelation at the foot of Mount Sinai. We believe, or we understand the text to be a deeply spiritual teaching through storytelling of moments in the spiritual journey that connects each and every one of us to what is there for us to unfold on the path. And when we understand the text of the 10 Commandments as the 10 pronouncements, then we read what is written in Torah as prescription, like a doctor writing a prescription, a spiritual prescription, if you'd like. To awaken within us a connection to the deeper truth we know to be. Anochi Adonai Elohechem, asher hotzeti etchem me'eretz Mitzrayim. I am usually translated, I am the Eternal One, your God, who brought you forth from the land of Egypt, from the place of enslavement, to be for you God. That is usually the translation of the first of the 10 Commandments. And this is the one that we must understand in order for us to really connect and realize what it all really means. If we miss the first one, we missed everything. Anochi Adonai Elohechem. I was in Colombia for my vacation, visiting members of our community there. And I was invited to give a class while I was there to the burgeoning little Jewish community that was there. And I mentioned, the first of the 10 Commandments as we engage in a conversation. And one of the local rabbis, who was very knowledgeable, and we had a fabulous time together, mentioned that, and I never heard that the word Anochi, which is translated as I, might have come from the Egyptian, actually, for the Egyptian I. Most of us have learned to understand this Anochi as the highfalutin, the greater I. But it is possible that it's God trying to speak Egyptian to the Israelites while speaking Hebrew so that they would understand. The point is that the transmission, if it is true spiritual transmission, has to be made available to all of us wherever we find ourselves to be in that moment of our life. And that's kind of the teaching behind it. So it is an I that is available to all of us. It is an I that in fact is manifesting as all of us. And that is that I am. If it's a highfalutin I am that is beyond the clouds and unreachable, it's got nothing to do with us. And we have nothing to do with that. But if we understand the I am as the I am that we speak, as the I am that we reflect, then now it becomes something that awakens right here within ourselves, in our soul and in our heart. I am Yod He Vav He Elohim. Those are two words that define or seek to point to what God might be. We don't have the word God in Hebrew, the G-O-D. Even G-O-D doesn't mean anything. It points to something that no letter, no word can encapsulate, can capture. It's at best, as the Hindu or the Buddhists say, a finger pointing to the moon. It's not ever the moon. We have made those three letters, God, into an idol. And we have given them true meaning, where in fact they are just a label, like a name tag. You are not your name tag. There's more of you than just your name tag. In Hebrew, there is no such a thing as the word God. It doesn't exist. We have Yud He Vav He, the four letters of the unpronounceable name for the divine being, whatever that means, whatever we understand it to be, that in our tradition represents the divine as it is transcendent of the created universe. That is before, beyond, that is not anything, that is no thing, that is nowhere, that doesn't enter into space and time, yet out of which space and time becomes. And that space and time becoming, that space and time manifesting as all of this is called Elohim. Elohim is a plural name for God, is the oneness of it all expressing as the infinite manyness of all of creation. There are two sides of the same coin, the transcendent and the immanent, the nothingness and the everythingness are all expression of that one. They are just that one. So the first commandment says, I am that which is transcendent, out of which everything arises, that is everything you see, you touch, you hear, you smell, you taste, that is manifesting and captured through your senses. I am that force within you that seeks to free you, to cause you to awaken to that truth, to free you from the enslavement, Mitzrayim, Egypt, of ego, that collapsed identity, that mistaken sense of identity that you have made with your name, with the name tag. But you are not your name and anything that goes underneath that. Your qualities, your imperfections, everything that you think is you is not the totality of you, is just the aspect of that one that is expressing and manifesting moment through moment, beating your heart, breathing your breath, speaking your words. And you also are the nothingness at the source of everything. And that expresses as the force that seeks to push you to break free from the shadows of the ego. I am the one that is everyone. I am the one that is everything. I am the one that is every when. I am the one that is everywhere. I am. Now, if we understand the first commandment, then the second one that says, you shall have no other God besides me, it's not even a shall, right? The shall is the commandment part, but we don't read it as a commandment. So we translate differently. We say, you will have no other God besides me. If you understand the I am that is expressing as you and everything and everyone, and there's only that one and nothing else, if you make believe there is something else that may be God, then you have not understood the first principle. Then you have not understood the first pronouncement. You will not have any other God besides me. There's no way. Because there is nothing besides that which is everything. Skip the third, the fourth. I'll come back to the fifth. The sixth, usually translated as, you shall not murder. We understand it as, you will not murder. You will not murder. Who are you murdering? There's only that which is everything and everyone. How can you have anyone so hateful to you in your heart that you might want to murder him or her? You miss the point altogether. It's chet. It's missing the mark. It's what is mistranslated as sin. In Hebrew, chet, to miss the mark. You're missing the mark. You're missing the point. There's nobody else but me. Who are you murdering? You shall not covet anything your neighbor has. Whatever you have, I have. Whatever is your gift is my gift. Not mine as me encapsulated in this skin, pretending to be Rabbi Olivier, but I of Anochi, which has all of our gifts, which is all of our gifts. What is there to be jealous of? The fourth one is keep Shabbat. Keep Shabbat. Carve in your life. This is a spiritual principle. Carve in your life time for spirituality. Carve in your life a break from the doing so that you can rest in being and you can remember the truth of who you are, that you are not a doing machine. You are a loving being. You are my hands, my mouth, my heart, my feet. Remember the Shabbat and its holiness, to keep it, to guard it. because we get stuck in the doing and we become ungrounded, uprooted. We act from ego. And when we act from ego, what we create in the world is anger, fear, animosity, enemies. But when we act from source, then what we create in the world is compassion, kindness, and love. So check from time to time in your life. Where is the source from which you are acting? And keep Shabbat, carve out time to turn off your phones. Right now, we have to get on a retreat from the news. I'm going to invite you to do that during the high holidays for 10 days. But take a break. It's overwhelming. It's mind-numbing. It's depressing. Because we forget the heart. We forget the source. I want to talk about the fifth commandment because the fifth this year is the one that exploded in my heart this week. There's no mistake that this was this week's Torah portion. Kabed et avicha ve'emcha, usually translated as honor your father and mother. Honor your father and mother. And that's one way of translating it. When we honor our father and mother, if we have the chance to not have been born out of an abusive family, a violent family, and it is possible for us genuinely to honor our father and mother. Or if we have done the work of forgiveness, and we can find a way, in our way, to honor our father and mother as best we can, then we can connect to that place of gratitude in our life for those who have raised us, who have done the best they could with who they were at the time. We can find in our heart to perhaps in our little ways pay back what we have received. To be of support as our parents are aging. To be a presence in our life, in their life. And I'm just sending my daughter to college. And it's a big deal. And I didn't know it was going to be such a big deal. Nobody told me it was going to be such a big deal. Who were you who had already sent your kids to college and didn't corner me and say, wait a minute, Rabbi, sit down for a moment. I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. Because your heart is going to be broken. And you're going to find yourself sobbing like a 2-year-old, watching your little girl of 18 get on that crazy plane to go to Indiana for the next 4 years. And you're going to find yourself choking all week until now. When my wife is on her way back after she set her up in her dorms, when my daughter tonight is sleeping for the first time with her roommate in the dorms in Indiana. And nobody prepared me for that. And I'm hoping that, I pray that with the 18 years of raising her, that she might find the groundedness that I know she has. The force of character, the goodness of being that I know she embodies. To move through those 4 years and be a shining light in her community. I am partially confident that I have done, and my wife and I have done somewhat of a decent job raising her, that she is halfway ready to face the world. But then there is another way of reading the fifth commandment. Kabed et avicha ve'imcha, honor your father and mother. Those of you who know Hebrew know that the vowels and the dots and the points that are in and around the letters are made up. At the time the Torah was written 2,500, 2,600 years ago, and if you open the Torah scroll today, you'll see that there are no vowels, no dots, no lines, no punctuation, no period, no exclamation point, just word after one after the other after the other. Imagine opening a book and there is no big letter, no point, no comma, no nothing. Just word after word after word after word. That's the Torah. 1,500 years after the Torah was written, the Masoretes in Tiberias decided they were going to codify the Torah so that we would remember how to pronounce the words and how to read the words. But as soon as they did that, they imposed upon us a certain kind of interpretation. And they read the word for that we translate as honor as kabed. But if you remove one of the dots in one of the letters, then it's no longer kabed, but you can read it as kaved, because the bet becomes a vet. Kaved no longer means honor. Kaved means heavy. Heavy are your father and mother. A heavy presence in your life is your mother and father. That's the fifth most important principle. Maybe it's connected to honoring, because to honor, to give honor is to bring weight to something or someone, to bring gravitas to something or someone. And maybe the word gravitas is connected to gravity. Heaviness. Heavy are your parents in your life. Heavy is the presence of your parents in your life, how they have shaped you in those first 18 years of your being here, how they have conditioned who you are today in those tender years of your life, maybe up until now for some of us. And for some of us, that has been a wrestling match with ourselves, maybe with them, to try to heal, to make whole what we have received in good and not so good from our parents, because no parent is perfect. And our process has been a process of healing, of coming to understanding, of reconciling. And I look at the 18 years that I just spent with my daughter, and I look at the mistakes that I have made. I looked at the times that I yelled when I should have embraced. The time where I was too busy, too involved, that I didn't have time for her when she needed or yearned for just a word from me, a look from me, a hug from me. The times that I was the one who caused her pain. The times where I wanted to throw her out of the window, and I should have just appreciated the preciousness of the tantrum she was throwing. Because now it's gone. And I can never take that back. And I can never be there again. And now she has to work on the heaviness of her father in her life. And now she has to work with all the roadblocks that I didn't intended to place before her. I love that the Hebrew is so much more nuanced, that it brings up in the same word the light and the darkness, the light and the shadow of the pronouncement, not the commandment, the pronouncement, to help us realize how to honor, but also to be mindful of the heaviness of what we have inherited and what we are transmitting. So there's a lot of work ahead of us. A lot of work for each and every one of us. And this is the journey each and every one of us, we are all on. Whether our parents are still in this world, or even if they're no longer here, we know that their heaviness hasn't diminished from them not being around. They're still heavy with us. And we still honor them. We still honor them by the ways we act, following the education they have given us, honoring their truth. So I understand the fifth commandment today, thanks to my daughter going to college, radically differently than I ever connected to until now. And it's fascinating that it is the fifth commandment, but it is the first commandment that begins to deal with human relationships. Everything else has to do with spirituality, our connection to the divine. But from the fifth commandment on, it's all about how do we be human beings, face to face with each other in relationships. And the first one of the six, the last six, is about mom and dad. The song we are about to sing is a song that welcomes angels. The angels of Shabbat. But in our tradition, in the Kabbalistic tradition, there are angels surrounding us all the time. Uriel is lighting the way forward in front of us. Gavriel is the strength and the courage on our left, giving us strength and courage. Michael on our right is there to remind us of the fact that we are divine beings. We are the sons and daughters, the manifestations of the Divine One. And behind us is Raphael. Raphael is the divine angel of healing. And today, for me, more than ever, it is the angel that is there to remind me to heal what I have left behind, to mind my wake, to be careful and mindful, and to work to heal the past with my daughter and soon with my son, and with all the peoples that I might have hurt in my life. So somehow I have begun the high holidays already. And I did that Sunday brunch with my daughter. I opened my heart to her and I made amends as best I could. So may you connect with your Raphael, and may you heal what you have left behind.